I'm trying to record some Pokemon leaks, but this dog, yeah, getting in the way. Welcome back, Wolfpack. Verlis here, and Pokemon leaks are still happening. There's just way too much to talk about, with non-stop information being dropped, endless threads of concept art, and beta Pokemon, and beta gameplay, lore, scrap designs, and all kinds of other things. Also, one of the biggest reasons I'm not covering it play-by-play is because I don't know what Nintendo or the Pokemon Company is going to do about this. Are they just waiting for Verlisify to upload his third video and then finally take down the channel through strikes? It kind of doesn't work that way because, like, bulks only count as, like, 1 or 2 strikes sometimes. But yeah, like, it's actually really spooky out there, and like I've said in previous videos, it's going to take months to unravel all of this and then, like, properly figure out what's real and what's fake, because this is like 4chan and getting leaked on Discord, and some people are like now just dropping in their own Fakemon concepts and stuff. But anything that's actually coming from the leak is real. So again, like, sifting all that, actually documenting it, trying to find out, like, what happens and what this means for Pokemon. Who even knows? And, like, are we calling it the GIGALEAK or the TerraLeak? I saw people saying, like, oh, the TerraLeak is stupid. And at first I was like, wait, why are they calling it TerraLeak? Is that, like, the name of the dude? Like, is that the alias of the dude that's leaking it? No, it's the TerraLeak because it's a terabyte of information. So calling it a GIGALEAK actually undersells it by 1,000 times. So referring to this as the GIGALEAK downplays the scale of it. I don't know, it's weird. Let's talk about what's going on. That was a long intro. The leak reconfirms Mewthree. It wasn't just Mega Mewtwo's codename. What? Mewthree specifically mentioned in the very first XY concept. So yeah, the leaks aren't like upcoming game information, and after a lot of like the beta leaks that have happened in beta Pokemon, I'm kind of tired of all that, cause like, yeah, those never happened, and then we don't really know what it means for Pokemon. Also, again, sketchy copyright grounds, so how much can we talk about beta Pokemon, and we didn't know, like, the intention and the development behind it. But now that we have the GIGALEAK or the TerraLeak of Game Freak's almost entire history, it actually puts things a lot more into context, because we have Proto-Scrafty as a Scrap Generation 3 design. So we've kind of seen this where it's like, hey, that Pokemon looks familiar, and it ended up being released in a later generation. But then that's also why I'm kind of, like, tired of beta Pokemon stuff, because then people, like, they take the trivia too far, or then they try to say, like, oh, but now we can get Gorochu, or why haven't we gotten Gorochu as a Mega for Raichu, or why wasn't that Dynamax Raichu or something, where it's like, that's not how beta designs work. And as we can see, there's more scrap Pokemon designs than finalized Pokemon, which is how it should be. So once this kind of settles down, then we can maybe get deeper into that. And we're not getting a lot of upcoming game information or anything about the Nintendo Switch 2, so let's use what we have now to solve mysteries like the power plant, because that's actually answered in the leak, which is crazy and just kind of makes me upset. Like, oh yeah, Game Freak never, like, published this, or at least, like, tried to explain things that everyone wants to know about at some point. So another one, seems like they had the concept of super evolution and Mewthree since the very beginning. They asked themselves how Mewthree can become a super evolution. And that actually just, like, makes sense. Especially like, oh, if it was supposed to be Mewthree, and then we have Mega Mewtwo X and Y, maybe they were just like, we can't, like, making an evolution here kind of seems weird. And it kind of almost feels like just your natural response as a fan when you see it, where it's like, I don't care what people are saying, I'm calling Mega Mewtwo Mewthree because it's close enough. And then the implications, like, do we have a 4th stage evolution, or do we do something different with Megas? Because having 4th stage is in that same line of, like, oh man, Mewthree would be cool. But then, like, Garchomp, if you want to give it some kind of super evolution, do you make an entirely new kind of evolution, or you give it a 4th evolution and then, like, I don't like it. So yeah, this is crazy, but Mewthree is real, and we have the concept art for it. And then at some point, when they decided to, like, gimmick out Mega Evolution, say, yeah, there can be 2 forms, an X form and a Y form, it's like they split it into Mewtwo X and Mewtwo Y after making Mewthree, which just looks like a fan concept. Okay. But it's still, like, kind of neat and cool on how all that comes together. It's like, we have Mew, we have Mewtwo. Keep it going, Game Freak. That also brings us to other beta Pokemon concept art. This is where I'm like, yeah, the video's getting taken down, huh? Because the Pokemon Company, like, again, sometimes betas stay up, sometimes they get taken down. When it comes to like a leaked game, like if you're showing Pokemon from the upcoming Pokemon game when it's being like data mined and stuff, they used to not get taken down like in Generation 7, and then Nintendo started taking it down, but they weren't giving copyright strikes, except I think they like specifically targeted Ruffled Rowlet with a copyright strike, and that was hilarious. But I'm going to show the beta Pokemon designs anyways, and we're going to talk about it, but first, let's talk about Southern Kalos, because after more than a decade of debate, Southern Kalos is confirmed. So yeah, the map was kind of weird, and like, what's that? And like, where's another Pokemon region? And the Pokemon world geography? Yo, where's that? I don't even know if that's been a part of the, like, Game Freak leaks yet. Like, the actual mapped out Pokemon world that has to exist somewhere. Or has Game Freak just completely given up on the lore, which is already kind of proven by the existence of Pokemon Legends Arceus? But, yeah, Southern Kalos, like, post-game was supposed to be explorable, and that's kind of pissing a lot of people off, even though it shouldn't. Like, this is content for a Z version, but I don't think they were even planning a Z version. This is also in, like, the beta, which people are playing, because it's an actual game file that they were testing. It's crazy that people just have access to the beta. According to internal documents for Southern Kalos, they cut 2 towns, 2 cities, 4 caves, and 8 routes. Pokemon X and Y is big enough. That game had a lot of content, especially with a lot of people like skipping Generation 5 because it was complete ass, and then coming back in and being like, yo, I love Pokemon again. This is awesome. I'm going to learn how to breed and shiny hunt. And that was like the revival of Pokemon. We didn't need any of this more. You save that for the remake. You save that for something else. And then we went into Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire. It's like, and I don't know if this is like an experimentation on DLC. Like, okay, what world, like Pokemon X and Y, then we get DLC in 2014, ORAS in 2015, and then Sun and Moon in 2016. Instead, we got ORAS and then no game for 2 years. But also, Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire are the best Pokemon games on the 3DS. So again, we didn't need any of this extra stuff. Also, 4th mythical Pokemon found, and that is a steel electric typing. So here's how people are reacting. Oh, it was supposed to be an event. We explore the power plant for the steel electric mythical Pokemon, but it was also weird because like AZ's Floette, where did that go? Volcanion, not even a part of that. Like, it was in X and Y. Megaladios. There was weird stuff in the data mine for Pokemon X and Y, but all of that came out so much later. Maybe it was Proto-Zeraora, but also at that point, like, okay, now we're getting too much bloat. Too many mythicals, too many weird things that Game Freak will now have to keep up with. So I think kind of spreading that out over more games and generations, again, is fine. A lot of people are saying, like, we got robbed with Pokemon X and Y. No, we're getting robbed with Pokemon Legends ZA, not giving us a remake that lets us explore Southern Kalos. You understand why I don't like Pokemon Legends ZA? Because it destroys the beauty of Kalos. I did a video on that. People got mad at me. Verlisify's always right. Verlisify always right, to the point that Game Freak getting hacked and having a terabyte of data stolen confirms what I've been saying for years. I'm just that dialed in with Pokemon, and this toxic community hates me for it. It's unreal. Yeah, so we got all of that fun and crazy stuff going on. AZ lore, or at least like proto AZ lore, originally going to be the leader of Team Flare. That would have actually been more of like a whoa. Oh, and the mystery of Mega Jynx has been solved. It was real, because I think there's some weirdness with like Pokemon Home that there's an alternative Jynx cry for some reason, and maybe some tidbit of data in a Pokemon X and Y data mine where it's just like, oh, was Mega Jynx supposed to be a thing? What about other scrap Megas? Also, people have gone through the Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire leak, no cut Megas. So no Mega Milotic, no Mega Flagon. That was just something from an interview where it's like, yeah, it's hard to design and get right a Mega or even a Pokemon design for a fan favorite. So they just couldn't take that any further. But Jynx actually made it pretty far. And I wish the Pokemon Company published more stuff about this or gave more insight into their development process, because we have the timeline of how things happened. So like the removal of Pokemon, where it's just like, yeah, we decided we're not adding these concepts in, and then you can find the concept art in the threads. 3-dimensional drawing completed for Mega Jynx. Megaladios on the Mega Evolution list have been giving separate management numbers. So like that's why there's data for these things in X and Y. And early sprites for the spooky Pokemon concept art has been found. Wild. Pokemon almost went really dark starting in Generation 3, and then got crazy in Generation 4. And I really can't understand the people that are upset or disgusted by the Sinnoh folklore leaks, because in the finalized, published Sinnoh myths, it's kind of the same concept, where it's like, yeah, people and Pokemon are indistinguishable, and we also lose the lore of, like, Pokemon transforming into people, or wearing the pelt of a Pokemon turning you into that Pokemon, and the shapeshifting being why people and Pokemon married and there was no differences between the two, because it was that ambiguous. There's the Sinnoh myth about a foolish boy with a sword that slayed all the Pokemon until there were none left, but then it goes back to, like, the Ursaring one, not the sexy Ursaring one, but it's like, oh yeah, you slice an Ursaring's ear off, and then there's a dude walking around town or in the mountains without an ear. Because the people in Pokemon were just like that. And apparently there's a journal note in Pokemon Legends Arceus about some dude marrying a Frostlass, but that goes into Japanese yokai folklore about the Yuki Onna. And I think they also kind of fleshed out Sinnoh folk a bit more. There lived a Pokemon in the forest. In the forest, the Pokemon shed its hide to sleep as a human. Awaken, the human dons the Pokemon's hide to roam villages. That's the Typhlosion story, my guys. It's like canon. And like I said earlier, it's crazy that people are just, like, playing Pokemon betas right now. Same thing for Generation 5. People finding shinies in Pokemon Black and White beta, where, like, it's so beta, they're using PNG files of Pokemon art, or they just don't even have the thing programmed in. Placeholder. But apparently, it was see, this is what I mean by PNG placeholders as well, but apparently it was tested that a shiny Pokemon would always have its shiny sparkles, which would increase the value of shiny Pokemon so much. It's kind of weird and distracting, but I think, like, they should have kept this. And I guess there's, like, a more dynamic camera and stuff, but also they have to consider for the console they're programming on. Now, I can't blame Game Freak for removing these features from the 3DS, which was an underpowered console when it released, exactly like the Nintendo Switch. With the 3DS, a lot of the value went into having two cameras as well as the 3D screen gimmick, even though it didn't get a lot of usage. There's a lot of tech in the Nintendo 3DS. And classic Nintendo is gameplay over power of the console. So yeah, if you're emulating this on a computer to test the game, you're able to kind of do these things, and then you realize, like, oh, that just doesn't work on the 3DS. Also, it's kind of distracting if it's just kind of like a basic swooshing back and forth. I'm more okay with a static camera in that case. Or maybe there were button presses to control the camera like you can on the Nintendo Switch. But if it just kind of like swayed the entire time, that'd be very distracting. Also, like, the power of the sparkles. I think this is something that should have actually made it into Pokemon games as, like, how shiny Pokemon work. Just make it less obnoxious. And then, like, the shiny Pokemon are actually, like, really cool and flashy and shiny, and not just an animation sequence you can miss and then you fail a shiny hunt. You can actually run around the starting town in the beta, so it was actually supposed to be a town you could explore and walk around. We can go into dev mode and see the beta power plant. We also have this, which is really cool. Max was initially planned to be added to Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire as the rival's younger brother. I mean, there's already, like, a mix between anime canon and game canon, so they could have done this. That would have been, like, that's some fan service right there. That's good. And then some random takedowns of media. Apparently it's not Nintendo, it's ShowPro on these copyright takedowns, so who knows what that means for, like, the concept art, IP, and whatever. And then Battle Frontier was never planned for ORAS. Yes, good. And the Pokemon community always being stupid. People saying they cut it to rush out the game or whatever. There's never been any evidence that Pokemon games are rushed out for a specific time frame. Even then, Pokemon Legends ZA was supposed to be released in 2024, but it's gotten pushed and given the time that it quote-unquote needs, even though giving more time to X and Y or Scarlet and Violet doesn't make the games any different or any better. Just more ill toxicity from the Pokemon community, but what can you expect at this point? So now let's talk about the beta Pokemon designs. Beta Floette, and then a discarded Pokemon that actually looks really cool. Proto Talonflame? See, maybe? Some kind, I don't know. Lots of cut Pokemon as well. So something going on with Floette, a chameleon Pokemon that kind of rolls its tail up like a snail. Multiple forms or colors for Noivern and Quivern. An interesting Flamingo design. Like, Flamigo is god-awful and shows, like, the Generation 9 Pokemon designs just suck. I don't like the high heels, though. And I don't like what they did with the feet of Quaquaval. Mega Mewtwo Y. Charizard X, where it's supposed to be more like a Monster Hunter dragon. No, wait, that's Charizard Y. And then this is Charizard X. Oh, they were going in a completely different direction. But they were also, like, keeping these flame vents and then changing it around. Mega Venusaur. Interesting. Something here. Delayed to Generation 7 and reworked into Wimpod and Golisopod, it seems. That's just a weird looking Remora. From the thumbnail, it looks like, oh, this thing has like a long neck. No, that's the entire thing. So it's like, it attaches to a Pokemon and then gives it like one of those stability fins on a surfboard or something. But we already have Remoraid. So yeah, that gets scrapped. Mega Venusaur, and then Mega Blastoise. Let's go, my dude. 3 different designs considered for Florges. Maybe some kind of like forms instead of the colors. And then we have Chameleon Shenanigans and floofier Beta Furfrou. Furfrou actually looks so much cooler, especially in this one. Like, did they tone it down to make the forms? But then it just looks silly after that. Also, from the data mine, this is the first index number. So, like, Furfrou was the first Pokemon designed for Pokemon X and Y. Also, after what happened with the Generation 4 lore, that's a little sus. I mean, I get it. It makes sense that it's there, if you think about it. But Game Freak's never beating the allegations now. Either way, like, that's a really cool design for Furfrou. And I don't want to think about the world where, like, if they design it like this, they make it a more important and powerful Pokemon, and maybe it's competitively viable, and we just have this really cool dog running around in Pokemon now instead of just being as forgettable as it is. Also, like, it didn't get a lot of releases either. Game Freak really went, we made Fur Coat a scary ability, so let's just make its stats trash, just in case. And then this Pokemon's never allowed to be played. Also, targeted G Fuel ad on Bulbapedia, which is a good thing. The Halloween flavors are amazing. Use code Verlicify for 20% off your G Fuel order. And then we have base game, sequel version, and then never again. However, depending on like how these plans for the sequel to Pokemon X and Y and whatever Z version we're going on kind of makes sense, because like we're definitely getting it now in Pokemon Legends ZA, but that's just kind of weird. I hate the missed opportunity of an otherwise really cool Pokemon, and then finding out they made it more poodle than Arcanine upsets me a little more. But yeah, there we go. That's what I want to talk about with the leaks so far. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Hope you all have a nice day. Thank you very much for watching.